Order of the day number 6.
Question of privilege regarding the use of intrusive powers within the Parliamentary Precinct. Consideration of report.
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Christopher Finlinson.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the report of the Privileges Committee on the question of privilege regarding the use of intrusive powers within the Parliamentary Precinct be noted, and that the protocol for release of information from parliamentary information and security systems be adopted and brought into effect at a time to be determined by the Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't think I need spend too much time on this excellent report, given that we've previously debated the first part of the Privileges Committee's report into a question of privilege arising from the use of intrusive powers within the Parliamentary Precinct. And I remind the House that in the first report, the committee's function was not necessarily to apportion blame for the release of various information in a way that seemed to us on the committee to be haphazard and somewhat ad hoc. Rather, it was to try and gain a clear understanding of the facts in that situation, what information was managed by the Parliamentary Service, in whose interests, how it came to be disclosed, and what procedures were in place to prevent its misuse. So what this report does, sir, is focus on where to from here, and it sets out a number of principles for the release of information held by the Parliamentary Service. Mr. Speaker, as the Attorney-General, I have a particular interest in the matter of privilege as it relates to the separation of powers. I'm a Member of Parliament, but I'm also a member of the Executive and have the Attorney's role as protector of the judiciary. To that we can now add that in my work as chair of this committee, I've continued the Attorney's ancient role as defender of the Fourth Estate and of the important work the media does in bringing transparency and accountability to the proceedings of our democracy. And I say this, of course, without any inference that the media should reciprocate this affection while I am out campaigning in the closely fought battle for the marginal seat of Rongotai. Mr. Speaker, after the preliminary comments, we come to the heart of the report, which is part 3 on page 10, and that report sets out 4 key principles regarding information on the parliamentary server. And they are these, and it's very important to spell them out. First, there should be a presumption that information on parliamentary information and security systems should not be released. Secondly, individual members should retain complete control over the release of any information that relates to them. That is, material relating to individual members should only be released where that member specifically agrees to its release. The third key principle relates to journalists, that those journalists working in the Parliamentary Precinct should retain complete control over the release of any information relating to them. That is, material relating to a journalist or group of journalists who work in the precinct should, and I reiterate this important point because it was lost sight of in the eagerness to investigate the suspected leak last year. So it's a very important principle, and we must, whether we're members of the Executive or members of the House, remember at all times that we have a press gallery in Parliament so that they can keep an eye on us, not so that we can keep an eye on them. The final principle is that for information requests that do not relate to an individual member, the Speaker of the House should be the ultimate decision maker, and we had quite a lengthy discussion about the role of the Speaker in determining these important matters. So these principles are, of course, not necessarily absolute. Ministers have extensive and necessary obligations to disclose official information, for example, in response to requests under the Official Information Act. But what the principles do is form the basis of the protocol for the release of information from the parliamentary information, communication and the security systems. And a key part of the protocol is that no distinction should necessarily be made on the supposed nature of the information. A lot of energy was expended by parties over the course of the original investigation giving rise to this report and in our subsequent inquiry trying to parse the fine distinctions between data and metadata. So the protocol which is appended to the report, and I acknowledge the tremendous help of the Clerk of the House in getting to this stage, I hope will be accepted by the House and will be able to come into force just as soon as possible. But because I do think it clarifies what turned out to be an utterly unsatisfactory situation, and as I say, we investigated the facts very closely in our first report. I think that's all I need necessarily say, sir, about the protocol. There was a second recommendation which I need not spend a lot of time on. The second one was that we recommend the government update the Cabinet Manual to reflect that where an inquiry is established under the Inquiries Act, the exercise of powers in relation to members of Parliament and the parliamentary agencies will require recognition of parliamentary privilege and develop some standard terms of reference for use in any inquiry when it seems or appears that powers may be exercised in relation to members and the parliamentary agencies, because I think we need that, given that there will from time to time be inquiries set up under the Inquiries Act 2013, and we don't want to get in the unhappy situation that we found ourselves in 2012, 2013. So I thank all the members who served on the committee. I think we've reached a very good place, and everyone worked very hard on the report, not just for members of Parliament, but as I say, for members of the press gallery, so that we've got some clarity going forward.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. The Honourable David Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While we thank the people who assisted the committee, could I make